It's one thing to see these men running in track meets, and clearly they're faster than the women and they can jump higher than the women to no one's surprise. But it's another thing entirely to see them competing in rugby or ice hockey or field hockey or
physical
boxing.
Sports.
Boxing, for God's sake. If we're going to allow that, we'll allow anything.
Yeah, think about it. What if Ronda Rousey, when she was fighting in the UFC, had to go up against a Conor McGregor or somebody? How would that have looked? We got to take things. Yes, she would have. And so you have to look at things from that standpoint. I remember one time she joked around, and I have so much respect for her and what she brought to the octagon, in her star-studded days before she ultimately went on a loser streak and ultimately retired from the sport. I remember one time she was talking about fighting Floyd Money Mayweather, and I was like, pump the brakes now. Calm down. Now let's pump the brakes and calm down. This is something a little bit extra. You're talking about one of the greatest fighters in the history of the sport, all right, who's around your weight class, and he's a man. He will do some things to you. Yeah, before you could think about grabbing him, there's things he could do. So let's be careful about stuff like that. But people laughed about it and they shrugged it off, not recognizing the fact that you had individuals within the transgender community that were looking to partake in such actions in terms of, being in a boxing ring or being on a basketball court or being in a swimming competition or what have you. You're male or you're female. And a lot of times I think that as a black man, one of the things that I religiously point to, Megyn, is that it's one thing for us to fight on behalf of every human being for their civil rights, their civil liberties, and the right to be left alone. But people in today's day and age act like you have to be liked. And as a black man, I expect not to be liked by people sometimes, not just because of the color of my skin, but because they may not like my personality or whatever. I don't walk around looking for approval. I'm sure you don't. We do what we do. And a lot of times you see people from different communities, whether it would be an ethnic community or to be something else, where they're looking and demanding acceptance, not just approval, but acceptance. And that's not the real world. Your civil liberties and your right to live your life and be what you want to be. I said this the other day on television, if I remember correctly. I said, hey, you know what? You're a transgender athlete. Compete against other transgender athletes. How about that?
Right.
There are you ain't the only person that's transitioning that might want to be in a boxing ring. Find enough of them and compete against one another. Let the ladies compete against the ladies. Let the males compete against the males, and let the transgenders compete against the transgenders. We understand it. It's no problem. It's no big deal.
That's
Do
right.
it that way. And I think that, that just went into folks' ear and then out the other. But I'm pointing to fairness where there's no discrepancy. There's nothing up in the air making you wonder about the fairness of the competition. And we also live in a society where for so long we've highlighted how women have been mistreated. And I'm not just talking about stuff like domestic violence and things. That's obvious. But also in terms of just fairness. Title IX, for example, exists for a reason. Well, how do we pay so much attention to that, to get stuff implemented legislatively and what have you, and then turn around and ignore that with something like this? It makes no sense, because I'm thinking about the young ladies out there who have protested, who have felt it was grossly unfair to them to have to compete under such circumstances. And the same women we supposedly want to protect so much are the same ladies we're ignoring when they're making salient points about who they're going up against and how unfair the competition is.
Well,
I don't
let
understand
me ask you something as a sports guy.
Consistency, inconsistency. Yes.
You tell me, like Caitlin Clark is said to be like a Michael Jordan of women's basketball. But
Steph
if you
Curry.
took
Steph Curry, she's a real good. She's a really great shooter. Yeah.
All right. So if you took the actual Steph Curry and put him up against Caitlin in a one-on-one contest where they both went at it with with all their physical gifts and their gifts on the basketball court, what would happen?
Well, the likelihood is that she would lose, but it's less harmful because, if, for example, Sabrina Ionescu showed up All-Star Weekend and she competed against Steph Curry in a three-point shooting contest, right? And it was a really ratings bonanza, and it came across very, very well. But they were just shooting the basketball.
I saw that.
And by the way, she lost to Steph Curry, but she had tied or beaten all the other males in terms of their score that they had registered before her and Steph Curry showed up on the court. So you're talking about shooting the basketball, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're talking about competing against one another, where physicality comes into play, the likelihood is that she's going to be at a decisive disadvantage. And I'll give you another example. Dave Chappelle joked about this. He joked about this, and the transgender community, if I recall, were up in arms about this. Dave Chappelle, the noted comedian, said, what if LeBron James, essentially, I'm paraphrasing here, what if LeBron James had decided to transition to being a woman? He'd average 800 points a game. Who's going to stop him? You know, that's what he brought up. He said, so we think that we're being fair. We think that we're being okay with our thinking, but we're not taking it into total consideration in terms of how it really, really registers with us. And so when somebody like you comes along and you're very, very passionate about it and you're going at folks for okaying this stuff, they want to attack you. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, you can't find something better to do? I mean, listen, Megyn Kelly's on a game, but you certainly ain't going to win this argument because we're watching and we see. I mean, who couldn't see that you were right? It was people who didn't want to see. And that's the real problem. You didn't want to see it, so you ignored the facts. And Megyn Kelly wanted to see it, and you have it.
It was like Biden's mental infirmity. You know, we saw it. You didn't need an expert. You didn't need a medical diagnosis. You didn't need Tapper and Thompson with the big revealing book. You just needed eyes and ears. Same thing with this male boxer. It was very obvious taking a look at him. I do want to just mention this to the audience. They know this story, but it's just so telling. After my daughter was misinformed by her teacher that there are only 10 of these trans athletes competing in women's sports, which is not true, I wrote her a very long note setting the record straight and giving her the actual facts so she would not be misled by this person with an agenda. And at the end of the note, I included the following because it's true. In 1998, Serena and Venus Williams said they could beat any male player outside of the top 200 men. Karsten Brosch ranked 203rd in the world, and they were in the top 10, both of them at the time, in the women's, took up the challenge and easily beat both sisters, 6-1, 6-2. He crushed them. In 2017, the U.S. women's national soccer team agreed to play a Dallas, Texas, under 15 boys team. Under 15. So we're talking about 14-year-olds. These must be 8th graders. And lost. Okay, the U.S. women's national soccer team lost 5-2 against a bunch of 14-year-olds. It happened again in 2023 when a group of 18 to 20-year-old men, amateurs, beat a collection of women's all-star former national players 5-0. There's just no question that male advantage in sport is real. And if we continue pretending, especially in the contact sports, that it isn't, I'm telling you, it's just a matter of time before a woman gets killed. Well, it's just a matter of time.
Well, first of all, again, you're absolutely right. Clarissa Shields is a fabulous boxer. Layla Ali, the wonderful, marvelous daughter of the late, great Muhammad Ali, was a marvelous fighter. You don't want to put them in the ring with a male in their weight class to box. That would be a problem. You know, there's no question about that. And you have to take that into consideration as well. And in terms of what your daughter was informed about, that statement about no less than 10 transgender athletes, that statement came directly from the president of the NCAA at the time, just so you know.
No, I'm aware, which is also not right because and this is another thing that we discussed, an LGBTQ group actually came out with the numbers. And first of all, they said that Outsports said, if anything, the numbers of trans athletes in the NCAA are being understated because a lot of them are not out as trans. They don't want to be out because they don't want to be the next Amin Khalif or Leah Thomas. They just want to win the medals quietly, pretending to be women. And the schools are only too happy to let them because a lot of these schools enjoy the fact that they're beneficiaries of the male advantage. The men can win more easily than the women. And these schools are like, great, it's just another gold medal for us. But then it goes on to say that my note, when I did my research, UCLA School of Law put out these estimates in just this past February, 2025. We estimate that there are as many as 122,000 transgender youth ages 13 to 14 who could be participating in high school level team athletics, 122,000. So, which would explain all we've seen this past weekend alone in California and in Oregon and in Washington State. And I didn't even mention, listen to this one, Minnesota, a girls softball team, which could not win, Stephen A. They thought that this team was like cursed, Champlain Park. Well, guess what? They're now headed to the state tournament for the first time. Yay, everybody's so excited. How did it happen? I'll tell you how it happened. There is a pitcher who goes by Marissa, who is a man. His actual name is Charlie Dean. He now goes by Melissa Rothenberger. Here he is pitching and crushing it. And now this guy is going to carry Champlain Park all the way to the state tournament. And here, for the first time ever, here, by the way, he pitched all 7 innings in both games. It was 14 shutout innings against the defending state champions that this guy pitched. And here's the coverage from the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. The ending could scarcely have been more fitting. The Champlain Park softball team, perennial bridesmaids for most of the past decade, finally scaled a hump that had grown mountainous, leaning on the right arm of lanky junior pitcher Marissa Rothenberger to defeat Rogers 1-0 in the Class 4A Section 5 championship on Thursday. Rothenberger was masterful. What's missing from the coverage? The fact that this is a boy posing as a girl with all the male advantage that comes to any boy. Of course, he was masterful. This administration is working very hard to try and fix this country. But while they're focused on fixing the country, they can't fix your personal finances. That's really up to you. And that's why thousands of Americans are turning to Birch Gold. In the past 12 months, the value of gold has risen by 30%. Think about that. How's your stock market investment doing? Has it gone up 30%? Have you made 30% on your money? And demand is strong and it's growing. While reports are that the BRICS nations are actively working to challenge the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency, that's not great. In other uncertain times, gold has offered peace of mind. And in these uncertain times, it does the same. Birch Gold makes it incredibly easy to convert your existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA backed by physical gold. Or if you prefer, you can buy gold to store in your own home safe. Just text MK to the number 989898, and Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, only useful information. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, take control of protecting your savings today. Text MK to the number 989898. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.